And it's alright with me. It's alright with me. It's alright with me. And it's alright with me. It's alright with me. It's alright with me. And it's alright with me. It's
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. This is Tailinh Agoyo on Rise and Thrive, Indigenous Art, Culture, and Joyful Acts of Resistance at Usula Media. Today, I have a very special guest, Sarah Agaton House, who is an Anishinaabe artist, teacher, and community organizer from the Fond du Lac Reservation in Minnesota. Widely known for her handmade regalia and moccasins featuring Ojibwe floral designs, Sarah owns and operates her own business, Heartberry. She shares her knowledge by teaching beadwork in her community and beyond through classes and video tutorials. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning.
It's so good to see you. I've been wanting to talk to you about all this stuff forever, so I'm so glad we have this opportunity now.
It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you're joining us from your studio?
We call it the HBHQ. It is actually
cool.
Right in my yard out here on the res. And yeah, this is our little space. It's pretty new. So it's really exciting to have graduated from the bedroom and the kitchen table to this after, 10 years of working. So it's great.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I'd really love to talk about the evolution of Heartberry and how you got involved with Louis Gong and 8th Generation. So prior to that, you were very impactful, just doing your own work and being very aware of the need for cultural revitalization and going out into your community and teaching people how to make moccasins. Can you explain that a bit? And then let's talk about the evolution, getting into more of the entrepreneurial side.
I started making moccasins and doing custom work for people when my kids were little, just as a way to make extra money, like that lady who's walking around with the cardboard,
yes.
with her earrings. And that was how I started. And it really quickly grew. The demand in my community was so huge, and I started making moccasins. And then, we use moccasins for everything from birth through death. And so the demand got bigger and bigger. I'd have lots of people calling me and saying, I need a pair of funeral moccasins for, I know this is last minute for my dad, and I was like, oh, what my community really needs is for me to teach them how to do these things, not for me to be making these. And that was a big transition from being a maker to a teacher, but I just really saw that is what my community really needed. And I started doing that probably about 6 years ago, started teaching people more about how to do that kind of work. So it started out as me making one-offs and doing that kind of custom work for people, and really transitioned into teaching, which is just as rewarding, and actually really love that and really miss it right now.
Yeah, just the one-on-one, or just being in the community and being able to share and share that energy together. But are you doing virtual seminars and workshops too at this point?
Yeah, we've done some virtual moccasin classes. It's just so different. It's so hard, and I just really miss that human to human interaction. Is so important, and that energy that we get from each other is so important. But we have done it, and it was really great. We had this group from all over the country who'd made moccasins together, so it was kind of cool to connect all these Native people from all over the country who maybe never would have met. So we are doing some of that. Yeah,
I think that's the silver lining of all of this, is that we're able to reach a wider group of people and connect. Whereas so there's pros and cons, we could go on about that forever. But so teaching and sharing the knowledge is really powerful. And it has a ripple effect out, right? So I'm sure you see the impact of that every day in your work and just at home. with your community?
I mean, I've always had really incredible teachers, and so who were super giving to me, who were always like willing to stop like whatever they were doing
Mhm.
and teach me how to make this like nice stitch here, or this kind of beads, or how this is constructed. And I always took that as that this was a gift that I was given, and my responsibility was to give that gift again. I've always looked at this as just that this is just my job is to pass this on. And anything I learn, I feel like that's my job is to teach that to other people. And so that's that's been my approach. And so I try to make as many tools as possible, whether that's tutorials, books, patterns, whatever it is, so that people have as much support as possible. Because when people come into cultural art, it's not, like a make and take paint night. Like people come into it with all these feelings about themselves as Indigenous people, about their identity, about their shame, about their knowledge, like all this stuff they come in with. So even for them to step through the door is a really big deal. And then through the class, you're sort of working through all those things, all the feelings they have about their grandma and the boarding schools and their shame. And you're working through all that. And so a lot of what people are doing is just going through that process. But I love watching that because there's this amazing moment. People are struggling. And if you've been in class like this, like your hands don't know what to do and you're learning something new, and people are sewing them inside out. And then they flip them right side out. And there's this amazing moment where people are like, I made that, that their whole energy changes. And that moment is to me is the part where you connect back to something you thought was broken. And I think there's all kinds of ways that happens and all kinds of ways that people do that differently. But for me, like, that's my way of doing that is like, oh, I remember having that feeling, and I get to be a part of other people's lives when they have that moment over and over. And I just love that so much because I think that's so important for us to make that connection back to so much that's lost that actually isn't lost, and that we're not lost.
Right. That's
So
really beautiful. It's beautiful. And the way you explain it is just so gorgeous, because I think you're talking about the fear, and it's just, there's so many complexities with all of our experiences, and it's so loaded. And oftentimes it's scary to come in and ask for something or ask to be taught something because you feel there's maybe the feeling of rejection, or you don't deserve it, or you don't belong. And to walk in and be with you, and you emanate such just this beauty and feeling of safety and generosity. It must, so it's not just the knowledge you have, but it's everything that you bring to the experience for the people that come to you to learn. So it's really wonderful. And it's not often that you find that. And it's, I feel like, I hope that we can develop that more and more in our communities, so that like you're saying, it's not lost, it's here, but we have to maintain that, and we have to bring it in.
Right. Yeah. One of my teachers is Karen Savage, and I always watched how she taught. And one of the things she does when she walks around the room, and she'll look over at your project, she'll see you struggle, and she'll say, maybe we should, and she'll kind of tell you whatever. And she has this way of making you feel like we are doing this together, but really she means you're going to do it. Right. Like, right. But, it's really, I love to watch how she teaches and say, oh yeah, that's this way that we can make people feel like we're all moving.
It's very empowering, right? It's not, and like you said, it's not a one-off. It's like all of us together. It's it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to move into the connection and the collaboration with 8th Generation and Louis Gong. How did that come about?
Oh my gosh. So I love talking about this because I used to follow Louis on Instagram, and I would watch like the skate parks evolve, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the way, if I was ever to do business, like I would love to do it this way, where it's like culture and business and community organizing. It was this great different model that I felt like was like, oh, this is how we as Native people could do business. Like, so cool. And it brought all those things together. And so I would follow him, like total fan, right? And meanwhile, I'm just doing my thing. I'm beading, I'm sewing, I'm doing running, I'm doing all this stuff.
Silent
And
mode has been canceled.
oh,
Your ring device is now reconnected.
my camera is
Yes,
on.
your internet's reconnected. That's fabulous. I'm so happy for you.
I'm gonna turn this off.
Your ring device
that is good news.
That is actually my camera, my security camera.
Okay.
So anyways, so I have been following him for a long time, and I got a Facebook message from him that said, you know, I'm developing this Inspired Natives project. It's a business capacity project for artists. I'm looking for somebody who does florals, and are you interested in working with me? And I was like, oh my God, okay. And like freaking out, because it's just like, and you imagine anybody who's just someone you admire the most wanting to work with you. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, I think I would. And I didn't think that he would be such an incredible mentor, or that it would go this far. You know, I thought we'd make a pair of earrings or something, and we would all move on with our life, and my life would just continue hustling, mama in, like doing all that stuff.
Right.
And I never, but it's like from the beginning, it was always like, you got to think long term, you got to reinvest in yourself, you got to be learning, like always pushing me from the very beginning. And I mean, it's just completely changed my life and changed my family's life. And it's so crazy to watch the progression over the last, we've been working together for 6 years now. And Louis obviously has become so much bigger, and 8th Generation has become such a huge force in the Native world and in the world, like in the art world and the business world, and a model really. But to watch that and be a part of that, I mean, I got in there like, you know, like really good time.
Yeah.
Because now people will like compete to work with 8th Generation, and I'm like, yes, got in there. But
Right.
but I really wanted to take this opportunity and really go with it. Like, this is exactly what I want to do, and just go into it full on. And it's 100% what I want to do, and I love it. And he's really walked me through everything from like, here's the step in Illustrator to press. Here's what it does.
Right. That's what I was interested in knowing, is that I think his model, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was for the long term. It is like giving you empowering you to be able to do all of these things and think in that way along lines of his model, business model, so that you can just go off and do it on your own. Is that right? So just every little step of the way, like he's so patient and willing to spend the time.
Yeah. I mean, especially, you know, early on, a lot of it was really like helping me with develop the website. But it was always like, you do it, you learn about how to do it. I'll come back in, you know, really in that really good way of like pushing me, but also always assessing and always being like, here's what you need to work on. Here's examples. And he's a really, like, sometimes it's hard because like I'm a Minnesotan Ojibwe, and we are very passive and roundabout, and he's like very direct.
Yeah.
So there's some crying, but, you know, it's fine.
Nothing good comes unless there's crying involved.
But it's been so interesting to watch how, like, he understood that when we all do better, we all do better.
Yes.
And that has really been true, that the better I do, the better 8th Generation and he does, and it all just grows.
And all the other
not a
artists who are up
competition.
and coming. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
And something interesting I read that he wrote was along the lines of, you know, we talk about cultural appropriation all the time, or inspired by Native designs, but we can talk about it all we want, but until there's something that someone else can, that the people out there can buy and access, then we're not moving. And I thought that was really powerful, because it's true. And he was doing this a long time ago. So like, he's making that happen. You see, things have changed a lot since he started, and people are becoming very, the way the internet works and the way you can create your own fabrics and do, like, those things are more easily accessible now. So people are creating their own businesses. But when Louis was starting this, he had this like incredible vision about all of it. It was a
and
different
I don't think I
time
believed
too.
it. I didn't believe it at first. And he would say that too, that like, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't think this is going to work. Like, we're just going to be back to how we were. But he was always clear. And yeah, having that alternative and getting to make stuff like that is so incredible. Because I think initially I was kind of like, I really loved seeing people like wearing my beadwork or wearing my moccasins. And I remember him being like, if you want to develop your business, you need to stop beading. And I was like,
that would have been a shocker. I know.
And what he meant was not
Yeah.
that I couldn't bead, but that like
Like-
that, you know, beading for myself, my family, whatever, but like
Yeah.
thinking about how am I learning? What am I learning? How am I developing my business? And that that I would have the same feeling watching someone get my blanket wrapped around them at their college
Right.
graduation. Like
Right.
that feels incredible.
Yes.
And then it means, because the issue always with beadwork is that there's never enough. But like everybody can get one of those bags, blankets, you know,
Right.
like everybody gets to have that. And we
Right.
all get to have art on us that reflects ourselves.
Yes.
And I love that. So it feels just as good.
It's just a shift in thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now I see so many people replicating or attempting to replicate, I think, the model. And I also see all the things I was doing wrong that Louis would kind of stop me. And I'm like, oh, I remember doing that. Like the same things that I see like other people doing. Like, oh yeah, I remember taking like horrible pictures and all this kind of stuff that everybody, you know, that we all do. So yeah, it's amazing. I've learned so much, and I'm sure I have so much more
It's incredible.
to learn.
It's incredible. We have to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk more about Heartberry. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. Please stay tuned. This is Rise and Thrive.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model.
From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
And we're back with Sarah Agaton House of Heartberry. Sarah, I would love if you could share, first of all, it's heartberry.com. Is that the website? So listeners out there, visit, because there's so many gorgeous pieces on there. Earrings, blankets. Can you get into it for us?
Yeah, Heartberry has everything from wool blankets. That's really our like signature piece, is our wool blankets, throw blankets. And then accessories like earrings and apparel. And our earrings are all done in the 8th Generation studio in Seattle. So they're all made right there. And then we also have a whole line of like apparel. So your comfortable hoodies and socks and all kinds of great. And it's all designs that come from our beadwork designs and our quillwork designs, our loomwork designs, our animal style. It's all Ojibwe, Anishinaabe designed from our stories and our perspective. So it's so exciting.
It's so exciting, and everything on there is so beautiful. And the blanket, you're right. The blanket is like so magic. It's so beautiful. um, so when you started and it was just you and kind of the business was evolving, when did you start bringing on other people, and how many people do you have working with you now?
So like most business people, I started out with like recruiting my family, to help me with stuff right in the back, in the living room.
Yep.
And they got sick of that eventually, and started just bringing on people seasonally. So I brought on people seasonally and like as needed for at least 4 years or so, maybe 5. When we started doing like traveling and pop-up shops, I'd hire someone to work at the powwows because I want to dance at powwows. I don't want to sit at the shop.
There.
I mean, I'll come and say hi, but I gotta go dance. And so I started doing that. But I've had one regular employee now for the last year and a half, and now I have 2, which is super terrifying and exciting because I hired another person right before COVID, and I'm like, So but I feel like there's been like, she's gotten to really do a whole nother section of the business that I never had time to do, which is like social media and like really getting that handle on all that stuff. And so it's great that she has the time to do that, but it's scary to have people rely on you for their like income.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
Absolutely. It is. But then it does feel different. Like it feels like, okay, I'm next level, so I have to achieve these goals. Whereas I'm kind of in the same boat. Whereas before I was like, well, if it's just me, if I don't achieve it, it's okay. But now it's like, oh no, this has to happen. And it almost gives you that a bit of like power. Like you'll do it, but it is scary, especially the whole COVID angle. But yeah. But then do you find that it's more work now that you have staff on board because you're managing all of it, right? Whereas before you only could manage the capacity of what you could do. But now that you have people looking to you like, what do you think of this? Or you have to oversee everything. Does it make you more busy or does it make you less busy?
I'm in a peculiar situation. Maybe it's not peculiar right now. So my kids are at home, and we're unschooling them. So I have taken the approach this year that I am having employees partly so I can parent. And it's interesting because I felt really weird about it at first, that I'm not working as much and I'm parenting more, but being a parent has always been my focus point. I was a stay-at-home mom for like 9 years. And so like, that's always been more important. And one of my friends said to me, a lot of people have to pay someone to take care of their kids so they can work. Yes. And you're paying someone to handle a lot of your day-to-day so that you can parent. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I was like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that. So I have a great, Hannah, who works for me, is amazing. And she handles so much of my day-to-day and it's so wonderful. And she just does it on her own.
That's great. So
at Heartberry, I'm like, you want to figure out how to do that? Okay, you got it. You're good. And so I really love it. And I love being able to do art and do people relationships because that's what I love. And so I love it. It's great.
That's so primarily now because people are home, you're not going out to different powwows or pop-up shops. How are you pivoting? Are you mainly focusing on your online? Are you doing more social media like outreach? How are you handling all of it?
We are winging it. But we're really focused. Like we've had a website for 6 years, so we're really focusing on getting that all looking beautiful. And we did a great social distance photo shoot, so we have new pictures and doing social media and just keeping that as our focus point. Because there's really not a great safe way, especially in our community where we have so many elders, so many people who are like vulnerable in their health, that I just think right now is just not the time to be having pop-up shops, which is so sad because I love pop-ups, but it's just not going to happen, I don't think, this year. So we're just focusing on heartberry.com, and we have all our Facebook, Instagram, all that connected
and
to
so
it.
It's Heartberry on Instagram, and it's heartberry.com, and Facebook is Heartberry also. First of all, I love the name Heartberry. I think that it just fits so well. It's so beautiful and it's really easy to remember. And it's perfect.
Yeah, when I started, I was House of House, and
Yes,
that was
right.
sort of, it was more of like a joke because I was a stay-at-home mom, and people would always be like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'd be like, "I work at House of House." Like, hello.
Right.
And I didn't
But
really
it sounds
think
like a
about,
high-end couture brand in France or something.
it's like sounded really fancy, but no one could spell it. And I was like, that's a really valuable
Oh.
lesson, is like,
Hmm.
if you're gonna build a business and pay for a domain, make it something that people can spell.
Mm-hmm.
Because Heartberry, when people say, how do you spell that? I'm like, just like you'd think.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, Heartberry.
Right.
And then there's so much more behind that name,
Right.
but it's easy to just say Heartberry. And they're like, oh, okay, I
Right.
got it.
Right. And it looks beautiful with your logo and everything. And it's all coming together so beautifully. You wrote on Facebook the other day something about hiring models. It was pretty funny, but so this was that for the photo shoot that you're talking about that you just recently did?
Well, I'm always like scouting, like scouting.
You're just like,
like,
woo.
ooh, and you do a lot of this kind of work. So like, you
Yeah.
probably are used to that, but like, I'm always trying to find not only people that look like what I, think that our community looks like, but also when someone's going to represent your business, right?
Yeah.
Like, you to find men who are like respectful, kind men in their life, so that if they're modeling for my business, they're not out there, being crazy. Right. So like,
Right, because they're going to be their face of your business.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I live in a very small
Mhm.
town, I don't even live in town, but a very small community. And so like those relationships impact everybody. And so I really got to be like conscientious about that. And I also really trying to work on really normalizing having brown faces as the models that I think, none of us grew up knowing that. And now businesses, I think, are catching that, right? Like, oh, we should have sort of this racially ambiguous model on Target, right?
Yeah, right.
But
well, they understand the numbers of it. I think that's where those corporate people are coming from. You're coming from a different place where it's representation.
mm-hmm. And I really and it's been interesting because to see non-native people say, well, can I buy your work on Heartberry because I'm not native? And I'm like, yes, it says right on there, for all. But it's interesting is that the expectation for us is to see non-native faces and think that we're accepted in that environment, versus when they see native faces wondering if it's okay for that. And so that's
really
an interesting thing, is like I'm going to just keep working on normalizing that, and also normalizing that native people look like every
Mhm.
shade and tone too.
Mhm.
But also this, like, that it's okay for us to have brown faces in our businesses. Like, that's important.
It's really important. Yeah. And you're right. We didn't have that growing up at all. I mean, it wasn't on TV. It wasn't anywhere. Yeah. I'm so glad that Target, regardless of their motivations, it's still really wonderful to walk in and see people that look like us or our kids, or, it's important.
I geek out on Molly from Denali. I freak out whenever Molly from Denali
I haven't watched it, but I've seen the little illustrations and they're beautiful.
It's so fascinating because like my kids are 10 and 13, and to see how my kids think, they don't understand why I think it's such a big deal to see brown people successful as doctors on TV running businesses. To them, that's all normal.
Yeah.
Their doctor is native. They see, to them, this is all totally normal. And I'm like, this is not normal. And I'm freaking out, and they don't understand because they're just like, our whole world is successful brown people all around us.
But you've been a part of that for them, right? You developed and you created that for them too. I think, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think I've done that for my kids, like made sure that their world was filled with brown people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's an interesting time. And I think as much as there's so much difficulty, I also feel like there has been a lot of progress in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's difficulty.
Oh yeah, definitely difficulty. We're not going to go down that road right now. We want to talk about heartberry.com. So what do you have getting ready for Christmas time?
we have a whole new set of new Heartberry products that are going to be rolling out throughout November. So if people want to
That's
find out about
exciting.
those, yeah, they can follow us, and we'll be rolling all that out doling it out
Little
at
by
a
little,
time.
like little
Yeah.
treats.
Mhm.
So what's the last day that people can order for holiday delivery?
I would give yourself at least I would give yourself 2 weeks, but even, I know people don't do that.
Mhm.
Maybe a week, but it's so hard to say what the world will be like in another month. It's so hard to know. So definitely get on top of it. The other thing is, because we're such a small business, we run out of stuff. So I just, sometimes if you really like something, you
Gotta do it now.
gotta get it.
It's never too early. And I think this is a really good year to, I mean, some people are having financial difficulty and it is so uncertain, but I also think this is a year where you kind of want to be so present in what's happening and enjoy the little things and get that extra lovely piece of chocolate and buy those beautiful earrings, because you're not going out, like you got to feel special somehow, right? So I feel like, I mean, I'm not really sure how the holidays will roll out, but I've been kind of thinking about it. Like, what will it be? Will it be bigger than ever because everybody kind of needs something? Or will it be very modest because everyone's afraid about the economy? You're right. We have no idea.
I think it's one of those adaptive things that, like, we're really good at adapting and being resilient, and we'll all figure it out. Like, we got here somehow, right? Like, we're still here all this time later. So that's pretty incredible as a people.
Right.
And so we'll figure it out.
Right. That's for sure. We always figure it out. Yeah. So I want to talk about your running group. And you met Oprah, which is like, I don't think I've ever met anybody that has met Oprah. So I need to hear all the details.
So the Quay Pack is our Indigenous women's running group, and Quay is woman in Ojibwe. And so the Quay Pack is a group of women, and we've been running together for 8 years now. And really, like, when growing up, I never saw anybody running where I live, unless you're like running from, running away.
Run from the law. Is that what you're going to say?
And I live right by a treatment center. And when I started running, people would kind of like slow down their car.
Oh, to see if you're like running from something in your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's really where it was at. And so, like, really, since we've been running together, it has transformed the sort of paradigm around running in our community, that now it is not unusual at all to see Native people running out here. Like, it's people just, that's those runners. These women have run everything from 5Ks to 100-mile races.
Incredible.
And they're just amazing. And I would have never tried half the stuff that we've done together without them. I mean, it's just, it shows you the power of the group, right? Like and I also, to have a group of Native women peers who are amazing mothers and community members, and to be surrounded by that and supported by that is like something I've wanted my whole life. And to have that is just so amazing. In addition to the running, like, just to have that.
Everything.
To have a finish line with a whole bunch of Native women cheering for you. Wow. Like, what is happening? Like, crazy, so just that part. But also, really, the running has been transformative in so many ways. And partly, it was a safety thing at first. I mean, because, like, we're like right by Duluth, which is like the largest trafficking hub in the Midwest. And so partly it's safety, but partly it's also like reclaiming our right to be out in those spaces. So we do a lot of trail running, and it's like, really, we are supposed to be out there. We should know these places. We should be out there. Those are our spaces. And to feel that we don't belong out there is the ultimate trick, right? Like, that we're trapped in our homes and in our yards, and we're afraid. And that's the ultimate trick, because it makes us unhealthy in our bodies and our minds and our spirits. And so if we can break through all that, that's so many barriers that we need to get through to be healthy as a community. And so seeing all of our kids grow up in this is super exciting. All our kids grow up thinking that women run and that's just like what they do. Is super cool.
Yeah.
But also just the group and the community that's been built out of it is really exciting. And so Oprah, oh my gosh. So like I grew up watching Oprah, like most of us, right? The only like
3 o'clock.
yeah, you come home from school,
right? That's what you're watching.
turn it on.
Yeah.
When people used
Get
to
a
do this,
snack, right? You have to turn this channel. Fix
And-
the antenna. Yeah.
and she was like an incredible. And so when I first got the first email, I was like, from her people, I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, sure, I'm sure you work for Oprah. Like, whatever. Lady's like, no, call me. Like, here's who I am. Look me up. And so I looked her up on like all the stuff, and she seemed to be a real person. So I called her, and I still was like, I don't think this is real. And it was so funny because from the beginning, they're like, you cannot share about this. You can't tell the group about it. You can't tell anybody about it. This
So
has
you
to
couldn't
be-
bounce it off anybody like, is this real? What is this?
No. And so,
Wow.
and what was crazy was they're like, you can't tell the group. What we're going to tell the group is you're invited to her event and you're going to be featured at her event. And so they all knew that. So they're all like, oh my gosh, they're going to bring us, give us tickets. Like, this is so great. And they were all excited. They're like, they're going to come video us on the bridge. And so I'm like inside, like exploding, like freaking out because they're like, she's going to come there. And I've watched Oprah. I've watched her sneak up on people my whole life. You know, she does that thing where she sneaks up. And so I knew she was coming. So we're on the bridge in Minneapolis and we're doing this like run where the cameras are following us. And everyone's so excited because they're like, this is so cool. And inside I'm like,
Oprah's coming.
And they do this thing where they like crowd you up. And so you're looking the one direction. And in my mind, I'm like, I know she's coming. She's back there. And I mean, she comes around the corner of the group and everybody just like lost their mind, was like screaming. And then you're like, she's Oprah. So you want to hug her, but do you touch Oprah?
Right.
I don't know if you touched her.
They didn't give you notes on that before.
And so we all ran up to her and then I kind of stopped and then she like let us hug her. And then we went for a walk with her.
Yeah.
And just talked. And it was like the whole time, like, I'm like, be cool. Like, be natural. Just be natural. So I'm just trying to like, and she's like,
I always do this.
Grab my arm. So I like linking arms with Oprah Winfrey, walking. And I'm like, well, I guess I better take this time to talk to her about something real.
Right. Yeah.
So we talked about Native people and what it's like for us to be doing this. And
Sarah, let's hold off on that for 1 second. We're going to take a break. I want to hear it because what you said to her was really, well, what we saw of it anyway was really wonderful. So let's do that after the break. We're going to take a break. Stay with us. Rise and Thrive.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, and she convinced me to continue my education.
No one receives a diploma alone.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Sometimes the things we do or say can make others feel hurt, excluded, or isolated. Everything you say and do creates an impact.
How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Because of you, someone's entire life can change. You don't have to be a superhero to have a positive impact.
Friends?
Friends.
No one gets a diploma alone. You need support.
And we're back. We were just talking over break about the video that I saw. I saw little clips on social media, and I think she was also on the news. So maybe she was on the news by herself. There was a part where you put a blanket around her. And so anyway, during the break, we were trying to recap which thing that I saw, but Sarah's going to tell us what she remembers of it.
Well, I remember just walking with her and talking about why we do what we do. And it was interesting because you could tell they had prepped her. Like she knew all kinds of things about us. And when we got to the end, there was a reporter there and they had told me, bring a blanket. We want you to wrap this around her. And I was like, okay. So I like had a backpack with like a blanket.
And and you had the whole group there. No one knew why you had this backpack, this big backpack, like snacks, like what's in there?
So awkward. And I was so stressed all day. They're like, why are you being so neurotic? Like, what's your problem?
That is so
And
funny.
so she's talking to the reporter and I like, the producer is like nodding to me, like, do it now. But you don't want to interrupt.
You don't want to
Oprah.
like freak her out either, right?
Yeah, like I don't want to. She's anti-Oprah. Like she's talking. Like you don't interrupt her when she's talking.
Right.
But they're like, so I'm like,
that's tough.
So I like wrap it around her, and then I remember telling her like, we give gifts to people who give us gifts. Okay, and that the gift that she had given me was not only like had been 200 pounds my whole life, and so part of what the gift I always got from her was that you have the ability to transform your life if you choose to, and taking the hard parts of your life and deciding that you're going to build strength and you're going to take those experiences and change your life and become something stronger and better and impact and share those things with your community and how we can change. And I was like, so we want to give you this gift for the gifts you've given us. And I mean, she's standing there wrapped in my blanket and I'm just like, how is this happening? It was so crazy. It was just like the most unbelievable experience. But she was like what you'd think she would be like. Like, she wasn't super gushy, nicey. But she was very like strong, ethereal, and there was like a light, like a energy around her that you could feel.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh yeah. Like just what kind I think, and I felt like she was like what you perceive her to be that is how she was. And they whisked her off to the next place but it was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, so she seems like really grounded in her, she's at peace with herself. She's gotten to that point where she's our own person. Yeah, and that you were able to be in that space and a part of it, and she could share your space. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And now I told like the women in the group, like, yeah, like I told them, you have run and worked really hard for this. Like these women have run thousands and thousands and thousands of miles in sweat and mud and tears and it's not about being recognized. And she said that too, like you were doing this without Oprah and that we would be running if no one ever recognized what we were doing. Like it's obviously not about that. But it is really great to be like,
really cool.
Here's these hotel rooms, here's these tickets, like come meet Oprah, here's this food. Like we're like, wow, we like VIP entrance. We're like, what is happening? Like, when do a bunch of girls from the res, get invited to Oprah's show and we're in this hotel, like in these rooms, like, what are we doing here? And then they bring you in like the side entrance and they like walk you in and they give you all this stuff and you're like, what? We're usually like struggling to even get in places and we're like the VIPs. It was crazy. I keep saying when we met Oprah, we should have known that COVID was going to happen.
Because that was the ultimate, that was it, that you reached the top. Just too much. Yeah, you us all know that that was about to happen because that's hilarious. Wow, it's incredible. So beautiful. And you know, it's just the beginning though for you and your work, and it's really exciting. It's so exciting to see how it's developing and where you're headed, where you're traveling to, you know?
Yeah, I hope to be able to bring more people along the ride. Is always I'm a pack animal, so I always want to bring more people along.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. So as we wrap up, we have a few more minutes left. I'm just wondering, you talked about unschooling at home, and what does that mean to you? And we already covered how you're spending more time at home parenting, and because you have people working, which is really nice. So it seems like you've got the situation pretty under control. But I'm just wondering what the schooling is like, because I have my own story about that.
I think as a Native person, I have real deep leveled concerns about education.
Yes.
Right? Like on a real deep level, I have real serious worries about my kids being in public school. My daughter was coming out of an Ojibwe language immersion program. So to take her from that and put her into some distance learning program where she would be on a Zoom call all day watching public school, I just was like, this is crazy. And I just had always wondered what it would be like to teach my kids. And I have really great kids, so that's part of it. And they're also they already know how to read. Some of those things are worked through, but I just think this particular time frame, I feel like, is one of those time frames where I'm trying to fit this peg into the wrong hole, try to keep my life the same. It's just not the same.
Right.
And it's like when someone dies, the page is turned, and no matter how much we want that page to go back, it's not going to. The page is turned, life is different. And so for me, it's always what am I going to do with this life now? What are the blessings I'm going to try and just claw from it? What can I just dig into from it?
I love that.
Because that's how my life has been. And so I really believe in doing that. And it's not easy, and I don't feel in control of it at all. But I'm trying to say, this is what it is. And there has been unbelievable, beautiful things that are coming from this. And the things my kids are learning are amazing. And just, they're not stressed. And that movie, Life is Beautiful. And the little girl, and her experience is so different because of her parent, her dad, and how he presents the world to her. And I think that for my kids is to give them during this time, this is how you can cope in a very stressful situation. This is not going to be the first time they're going to have a very hard part of their life that's different, where they don't get to see their friends. They don't, life is very different for them. And if I can teach them how to adapt and cope with that, that would be an incredible gift to them. And so that's kind of how I'm trying to approach this, is we got to adapt.
Yes, right. I think that's an essential skill. And I love what you were saying about pulling and clawing and making sure that you find the goodness and embrace that and the blessings, because they are there. Sometimes you just have to just get through and get them, and to identify them and be present in the moment and be mindful of it. It really does change your outlook from day to day. It is, it is such an interesting time. I feel like in the beginning of it, it was very scary because there were so many unknowns. And now that and then just to watch that shift, because now we're living in it and there aren't still unknowns, but we've adapted. We've all adapted, even the people who are fighting it so hard, they still have had to adapt. It's such an interesting time, but I love your approach and I love your energy. I think you're just such a beautiful person. I'm so grateful that I've been able to have these conversations with you today. Before we go, I'd love for you to share your socials again and your website again, so that people can get online and get what they need right away.
Yeah, so we're heartberry.com, just like you'd think it would be spelled. And we also are on Facebook as Heartberry, Instagram, Heartberry Co. And we're on Twitter. We just got on Twitter, though. We don't really know how to use it yet.
Yes, Twitter.
So come on there. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up on Heartberry to get the first glimpse of when new things are coming.
I'm really excited about the new things. Can you share is it just a super secret, or is there anything you can share?
We're gonna
before we
have some
sign off?
new apparel. We're gonna have some new accessories, and so some new stuff coming from here in Minnesota, but also some new work that we're doing with 8th Generation. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Okay, we have 2 more minutes. I want to know what the weather's like there and what you're anticipating for winter. How do you get through
Wow.
it?
Let me tell you. Today is a winter storm warning. Expected 7 inches of snow today.
Oh, already?
So,
is that normal?
We already have about 4 inches of the last couple days. So it's not abnormal. I mean, this is northern Minnesota, so all bets are off. Like anything is possible. And then also, I feel like I told my kids this morning, I was like, look, we're gonna have to take this winter and look at it and say to ourselves, what do we love? What do we love about this? And so, you know, I'm like, we've been hiking every day all through this whole COVID thing, because it's like the main thing we can do. And we're like, all right, we're going to go hiking in the snow, and it's going to be beautiful. And so the weather is cold. But I've always, you know, it's so funny. I've always thought, man, our ancestors were so BA, right? Like, I didn't swear on the live. They're so amazing, and they lived outside in this. And then I'm like, oh, if they lived outside in this, I guess we could go outside.
You could go outside.
Right? Like,
for a walk.
Like, we can do this. We can get in the warm enough jacket to go outside. And so I'm trying to have some perspective, because this is what it is.
Right.
And we're here.
We're here.
Yeah.
You're amazing, Sarah. Thank you so much for taking the time and for chatting. I had so much fun talking to you today. Thank you for joining us. And everybody listening, thank you for joining us. Join us next Thursday. Oh, we might be switching to a new time, and that will be announced. Check my socials for the new time and new day. This is Rise and Thrive with Tailinh Agoyo. We'll see you soon.
And it's